Good morning. Welcome to Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. I am the Reverend Tiffany Sapp, the minister of this church, and my pronouns are she and her. We are going to get started with some singing this morning, and a couple of us are going to lead you in that. We can sing along using the gray hymnal. Our opening hymn is number 42. This is Morning So Fair to See. So please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 42, Morning So Fair to See. Worship this morning is participatory. So whenever I hold my arms out to you all, I want you to say, "You are loved and you are welcome here." All right, so let's practice. You are loved and you are welcome here. You are loved and you are welcome here. Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth, you are loved and you are welcome here. Whether you are feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, you are loved and you are welcome here. Whether you have untold stories buried deep inside or stories that have been forced out beyond the edges of comfort, you are loved and you are welcome here. Whether you have made promises, broken promises, or are renewing your promise, you are loved and you are welcome here. In this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, of covenant and connection, all of us, no matter who and how we are, may know you are loved and you are welcome here. Thank you. How wonderful to know that we are all loved and we are all welcome. This kind of inclusivity, the way we are building community and accepting each other as we find ways to heal and grow, is why so many of us are here today. I want to offer a special warm welcome today to my friends from the United Religions Initiative. Every other month, URI, the local interfaith group, does a visit to a different religious group. And this month, is us. So welcome and thank you for being here. This inclusive way of building pluralistic religious community that we do here has been an important part of Unitarian Universalist identity ever since the Unitarians and the Universalists merged in 1961 to form Unitarian Universalism. In 1976, just a decade and a half after the merger, theologian James Luther Adams reflected on what it means to build communities of love and how these communities of love use their power to transform the world. Today, we're going to explore an essay of his called Guiding Principles for a Free Faith and see what it means for us today, here, 46 years later. A lot of the language that he uses in that essay is academic, and it takes some translation, and that's what I'm here for. Some of his lines, though, are supremely quotable and quite relevant. So we're going to use some of his words to light our chalice.
The 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism can be found printed on the front of your bulletin. And the 4th one is that we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. James Luther Adams says that it is a key part of human nature to make meaning out of what is here and now, and he says there is meaning everywhere. Every blade of grass, every work of art, every scientific endeavor, every striving for righteousness bears witness to this meaning. Good morning, I am Wayne, your service leader here at Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. We welcome you, old friends and new, young and old, online and in person. You are an essential part of our gathering today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, we are stronger because of your presence. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved, just as you are. You are welcome here. Please silence your cell phones. Please observe the perfume-free zone. We are at low risk now, meaning that masks are optional in the sanctuary for now. It is still important to remember that some people will still want to be distanced, which will be indicated by the color-coded wristbands. And it is especially important to stay home if you're sick. Today are we going to bring back a pre-COVID tradition, and that is inviting our kids, and even their parents if they want to come down to the front to hear the story and reflect on it afterwards with Reverend Tiffany. Don't worry, none of the kids or parents will be on our video. We have figured out the camera angles to the privacy. And one of our youth is actually in the story today. So we'd like to invite our kids and youth to come down and sit here in front, and our storytellers to get in their places.
I see a few young people, and we'd love to have you come join us this morning. But if that feels like a lot of pressure, no one's going to force you to do it. I see everyone's like looking across each other in the sanctuary saying, are you going to go? Are you going to go? I don't know. Are you going to go? So glad to have some of our big kids with us this morning. sometimes when we start something new, or in this case, we're starting something old that feels new, it takes a little bit of time to say, am I really comfortable with this? But we appreciate y'all coming. Well, welcome, and thank you for humoring me today by coming down. We have a story for you. Once there was a girl who was worried about very big problems: poverty, hunger, and homelessness. She knew that there were even people in her hometown of Johnson City who had nowhere to live and that they were cold and hungry at night. She wanted to do something about it, but she was only a little girl, and it was a giant problem. What could she possibly do that would make a difference?
Hey, Sweet Pea, why do you look so sad?
Well, Mom, I've been thinking about how so many people don't have food to eat or places to stay warm. I'm so grateful that we have those things, but I worry about the people who don't. And I don't think there's anything I can do about a problem so big.
It is big, and it sounds like it's time for me to tell you a story. You see, there was once a little boy named David who had a very big problem: Goliath. David lived in a land called Israel, and the Philistine soldiers were threatening to invade his country. The very biggest Philistine soldier was named Goliath, who boasted to the people of Israel,
If you can find one person who can beat me in a fight, then we will not invade your country.
but there was no one in all of Israel who thought they could beat Goliath.
He is much too tall and strong. This problem is just too big for us. There's nothing we can do about it.
Young David was surprised that no one would fight Goliath, so he went to the king of Israel and told him,
I will fight Goliath.
That's right. The king looked down at the boy. He did not want to send such a small fellow to fight such a big man. But because no one else had volunteered, he said to David,
I admire your courage, young man. Here, I will give you my armor, the best armor in the kingdom.
But when David put on the armor, he fell straight down to the ground. After all, David was just a little guy, and the armor was very heavy.
Thanks, but no thanks. I think I'll just use my sling.
The king was surprised by the boy's courage and let him go. David made his way to the battlefield where he found Goliath. He stood up straight, showing a courage he didn't entirely feel, and said,
I am ready to fight.
But you are just a small boy.
Goliath just roared with laughter. While Goliath was laughing, David put a rock in his sling, twirled it around, and let the rock fly. The rock hit Goliath in the head, and the giant came crashing to the ground. David was a hero.
That's a great story, Mom. But what does it have to do with me?
David lived a long time ago, but the world still has giant problems: hunger, pollution, war. We can do something about it.
And with that, she got up from her chair and walked over to the couch and started tossing cushions everywhere.
Mom, what in the world are you doing?
I'm looking for spare change. You know how it always falls down in the cushions.
But why exactly do you want spare change?
I'm going to see how much I can find and then go buy gloves and scarves and hats for the hungry and unhoused people in our town. We can bag them up and put them on the church's giving tree that's up at Kings Common Park in downtown Johnson City.
Do you really think they'll make a difference?
Well, see for yourself.
And she lifted up the cushions. Scattered underneath the cushions were dozens of coins. How they shined and glimmered.
Wow, I never realized how much money was in our couch.
It can add up. The world has a giant problem, and too few think to throw stones that are close at hand. These coins will make a difference for the people who get what they need from the tree. And if everyone used their coins to fight hunger and homelessness, then we just might throw the stone that would send this giant problem crashing to the ground.
The little girl smiled, and together, mother and daughter gathered coins from underneath the cushions. The end. Now, y'all don't go anywhere yet. I got something for you. So, one of the things we did this year was we cleaned out our office. And when we cleaned out the office, we found out that a previous minister had done the 5 smooth stone sermon before and had little bags of stones. So if each of you want to come up and get a stone, I'd like you, or a bag of stones, I'd like to invite you to do that. And then I'm going to ask you a few questions about the stories. I'm not going to throw rocks, and neither should you. There are no giants in this congregation to defeat. I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave them here, and we'll have our conversation, and then you can come get the stones when you're leaving. That's what I should have done. Nah, y'all are bad influences on me. Right? Does anyone want to tell me what the story was about?
A rock.
It was about a rock. What else was it about?
It's about courage.
It's about courage. Good. What else is it about?
It's about people who weren't brave enough to do something, but then someone who was littler and they didn't think he could beat it stepped up, and because he had so much courage, defeated a giant problem.
Yes, I'm supposed to sum up what was said, but that was like the whole sermon. So that was very good. So we have, there are people who are afraid, who don't step up, but then there's a person who is brave, even though they are very small, and they stepped up. Was that about the idea? So these stones were about overcoming a big problem, but in little ways. Can you all name some other big problems in our world right now? What's
Global warming.
Global warming, that's a good one. What's another? Pollution. Hunger. COVID, yes. All right, and with all of those things, it might be really hard for us to solve the problem all by ourselves, but there are little things we can do to make a difference, right? Like with COVID, like when the risk level is high, we wear a mask, right? Good job, y'all. You did a great job with this story, and I want to invite you to come up here and take a stone while Liz gets set up for the music. When we work together, we can do so much more than when we work alone. One kid's couch money might not be a lot, but there are a lot of us here, and this place is full of generous and giving people. I see it every week. I'm so glad that none of us have to carry the burden of this hurting world alone. All the things we do are better when we're together.
There's no combination of words I could put on the back of a postcard. There's a song that I could sing, but I can try for your heart. There are dreams, and they are made out of real things, like a shoebox of photographs and sepia tone loving. Love is the answer, at least, to most of the questions in my heart, like why are we here, where do we go, and how come it's so hard? It's not always easy, and sometimes life can be deceiving. I'll tell you one thing, it's always better when we're together. Yeah, it's always better when we're together. too many things we have to do. But if all these dreams just might find their way into my day-to-day scene, I'd be under the impression I was somewhere in between, with only two, just me and you. Not so many things we have to do, or a place we have to be. We'll sit beneath the mango tree now. Yeah, it's always better when we're together. We're somewhere in between together. Well, it's always better when we're together. Yeah, it's always better when we're together. I believe in memories, they look so pretty when I sleep. Hey, now when I wake up, you look so pretty, sleeping next to me. But there is not enough time, there is no song I could sing, and there is no combination of words I could say, but I will still tell you one thing, we're better together.
Part of the way that we're better together is that we offer each other support in our sorrows, and we share our joys with each other so we can celebrate together. If you'd like to share a joy or sorrow in person, we have candles cards located right back there. And if you'd like to share a joy or concern from a distance, you can email minister@hvuuc.org. I have a big sorrow for us today. Just Friday night, Saturday morning, Phyllis Holmes passed away. Yeah. So we were expecting it. We saw it coming. She was on hospice, and James was by her side as she went. And James could use some love right now if you know him. And there will be a graveside service later on, but we have not set a date for it. So please lift James Holmes up in your heart and hold your loved ones close, y'all. A joy, a deep joy, is the giving tree. I have been out for a few weeks and haven't had a chance to really share my joy over this, but our Social Justice Committee has done an amazing job putting this tree up at Kings Commons. People have donated all sorts of items, gloves, scarves, hats, bagging them up, putting them on the tree, and it is tremendous. People from the community who heard about it on the news are just leaving items at the tree, and it's really become an opportunity for people to give and receive in this community, and it's bringing me a lot of joy that we can be a part of that. So I'd like to share that as a joy. If you wish to light your own candle, we invite you to go around and form a line by the window, and Alicia will assist you. And if you wish for us to light a candle for you to remain in your seats, please raise your hand until I acknowledge you, and I will light a candle for you. And we light our first candle for you who are not in the building, but are ever in our hearts and minds. for all that remains unspoken in our hearts and minds.
The 5 smooth stones of liberal religion were proposed by James Luther Adams, printed in his book of essays on being humanly religious in 1976. The wording of this 12-page long essay are a little harder to access for a regular listener in 2022, but Thomas Earthman at IMUU, one of the most popular UU social media presence on Facebook, developed their own interpretation of the 5 smooth stones, which updates and summarizes the language. This summary can be found in your bulletin to follow along and to take home with you if you wish. The 5 smooth stones of liberal religion. Number 1, human understanding of the universe is constantly expanding. We do not claim absolutes in the knowledge or truth, instead allowing our faith to grow with the new revelations and discoveries. Number 2, healthy relationships are always consensual and mutual. All lives are equally valuable. We should always treat each other with dignity and respect and expect the same in return. Number 3, it is our goal and our responsibility to create a just and loving community where people are free to find truth and give meaning to their own lives. Number 4, good and evil are primarily a matter of human perspective on natural events or human endeavor in the world. If we want there to be good as we know it in the world, we must do good. Number 5, history teaches us to be optimistic and believe that humanity has the capacity to solve human problems. Progress is neither constant nor inevitable, but we persevere in the march toward greater peace, justice, and equity.
Everybody loves a good David and Goliath story. And modern day David and Goliath stories abound. The concept has become bigger than the myth of its origins. It's become an archetype, if you will. One of my favorite modern David and Goliath stories is the story of Megan Greenwell and Ileana Montauk, who found themselves cast as David in the story of their lives about a decade ago. As writers for their high school newspaper, the Berkeley High Jacket, these 2 aspiring journalists would frequently read their local area newspapers to stay in touch with what was going on in the world around them and to sharpen their craft by reading what the professionals were investigating and reporting. One story in particular caught their attention. A brief, perfunctory report on how a teenage girl, Sitha Vemirdi, I'm going to get her name right because she deserves that, Sitha Vemirdi had died of carbon monoxide poisoning while she slept in her Berkeley apartment. As teenage girls, Megan and Ileana took notice. They had never met Sitha, and there was zero reaction with the schools to her death. Shouldn't they have known this girl? Where were the tributes, the tears? Was she completely unknown? They let their curiosity lead them into an investigation. They learned that Sitha wasn't enrolled anywhere and that she was a recent immigrant from India. They found some students that knew of her and interviewed them, and things began to sound fishy. Rumors of indentured servitude were whispered, and the name of a wealthy landlord came up. He was known for bringing people to the U.S. from India. He was the landlord at the apartment where Sita died. Megan and Ileana published the information that they gathered in their school paper, unsettled, but without a smoking gun. But the story was enough. One stone of truth cast from the sling of a school newspaper. The authorities saw the story and decided to dig deeper into a matter that they had not initially cared to investigate. In the end, the landlord was arrested. His human trafficking ring was unraveled, and new laws were passed to protect the desperate immigrants that are targeted by these sorts of criminals. My friends, there is no doubt that this world has more than its share of injustices and pain. And sometimes we wonder if there's anything we can do about it, if anything that we do matters. But stories like these of small people doing the small things that they can do abound. They matter and they add up. Even though James Luther Adams wrote his essay on religious liberalism decades ago, it rings true for us today. We can point to many Goliaths in need of opposition, and the kids were helpful to help us do that. David went against Goliath with nothing but 5 smooth stones and a belief that he was guided by a powerful force for good. David had his 5 smooth stones, and we have ours. These are tools that we can use as religious liberals to make the small differences that add up. And just to clarify, James Luther Adams talks about religious liberalism quite a bit, but I want to make sure that we know that religious liberalism is not the same thing as political liberalism, though we probably do have some overlap here. Religious liberalism is the religious approach that comes with a sense of openness to logic and the freedom to do our own learning. It stands in contrast to fundamentalism and traditionalism. And Adams's 5 smooth stones here really are defining religious liberalism, while pointing out how it can be a powerful tool for our collective liberation. The summary provided by my colleague Thomas Earthman that you can find on the back of your bulletin and that Wayne just read for us is something that I hope you can take with you today and use as a reflection tool. Today I want to spend a little time connecting the phrases on your bulletin to James Luther Adams' original work and to consider what this piece of Unitarian Universalist history means to us here on the closing edge of 2022. I think that as we go along and as you take these home for further reflection, you will recognize how beautifully present these historic ideas are in our movement right now today. So the first stone is human understanding of the universe is constantly expanding. We do not claim absolutes in knowledge or truth, instead allowing our faith to grow with new revelations and discoveries. Human understanding is always expanding. We are on a journey to truth and meaning, and we find meaning along the way all the time. But ideally, we're humble enough to not get overly attached to our ideas or to form absolutes. It's only logical to say, hey, in every other point in time, when people thought they found the ultimate meaning in life, they didn't have it 100% right. So, what are the odds that we have it all figured out now? This is not to say that we haven't found out very useful and true things as we journey to expand our understanding of the universe. DNA, electricity, the fact that the earth revolves around the sun and that we are tiny specks in a vast universe. These are answers. They are truths, and they are good ones. But like all good understandings, they encourage us toward a beautiful combination of humility and curiosity, awe and wonder. They invite us to build further on them, expanding our own understanding. It's a far cry from systems that say we have already been provided everything we will ever need or want to know. To use James Luther Adams' words, nothing is complete, and thus nothing is exempt from criticism. Our sources for truth and meaning and knowledge point always beyond themselves. We can always be growing if we embrace this mindset, our first smooth stone. Our second smooth stone is healthy relationships are always consensual and mutual. All lives are equally valuable. We should always treat others with dignity and respect and expect the same in return. Earlier attempts to summarize the 5 smooth stones in just one word, and it's the word printed on the stones I handed out to the kids, is freedom. But I think that this lengthier summary really says it better. It's freedom, but the sort of freedom that cares for one another. James Luther Adams writes of mutual free consent and not coercion. Applying this powerful tool to church life, it's saying that people must be free to be here and free to not be here. It's a recognition that our community uses our power to support our people rather than control them. That there's no room here in this space for a religion that manipulates, coerces, threatens, or cajoles. So it is absolutely about freedom. Freedom to let people explore their doubts and curiosities and criticisms. Freedom for each person to choose how they relate to our community. Freedom to be here together without subscribing to any creed. This is a beautiful, trauma-informed, consensual vision of church, and it's a big part of why I'm a UU. We're here because we want to be, not because we're being threatened with hell or guilted into conforming to an idea of who we should be and what we should be doing. The third smooth stone is that it is our goal and our responsibility to create a just and loving community where people are free to find truth and give meaning to their own lives. So if we are on this journey that is ever expanding our perspective, and if we're free to relate to our community in healthy, consenting ways, then what do we do with these gifts? Well, we use them to create just and loving community. James Luther Adams says that a faith that is not the sister of justice is bound to give us grief. Here, Adams is making it crystal clear that the purpose of the liberal religion that he is describing has everything to do with this life, the here and the now. Too often, religion points to an unknown future to give us comfort, or it offers vague thoughts and prayers without connecting to any meaningful action. Adams doesn't pull any punches here. He says the community of justice and love is not an ethereal fellowship that is above the conflicts and turmoils of this world. He won't allow his religion to be an opiate for the masses, but a tool to bring justice into the world. Which naturally suggests the fourth smooth stone that I really like the last line in this summary. If we want to be good, If we want there to be good, as we know it in the world, we must do that good. The original David and Goliath story, it was a story about power. There's an obvious monolithic power that threatens to destroy, and there's this persistent, smaller power that is determined to resist the forces of destruction. Our calling here to be a force for good in the world reminds us how to use our power and why it matters. The truth is that religion is either going to stand against oppressive powers, like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Dorothy Day and the like, or religion is going to turn into an oppressive power itself, which we have definitely seen plenty of throughout human history. He calls this religion bent towards goodness and wholeness as being the power of organization and the organization of power. We are gathered today here because we have more power together than we do individually. From postcard writing campaigns to marches on Washington to a tree full of blessings for our community, we are powerful. What we choose to do with that power collectively says everything about who we are and who we have chosen to be here at Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. It gives me hope. Which is why the last smooth stone is optimism, or in the words of Thomas Earthman, history teaches us to be optimistic and believe that humanity has the capacity to solve human problems. Progress is neither constant nor inevitable, but we persevere in the march toward greater peace, justice, and equity. When there's so much hurt and hate in the world around us, how can we find it in ourselves to be optimistic? Well, because we have these tools at our disposal and we're willing to use them. It's like the comic where someone says they believe there will be flowers next year, and when the other person asks them, how do you know there will be flowers next year? They say, because I'm planting the seeds of those flowers right now. This kind of optimism is not a hope that is detached for reality or hopes that someone else will take care of the problem. This is a hope in action that we create for ourselves. For James Luther Adams, there's a big difference between immediate optimism and ultimate optimism. Immediate optimism really is hard to come by right now, and I'm not going to pretend that it's not. Freedoms that many of us here fought for in the 60s and won in the 70s have taken a hit. White supremacist nonsense and hateful rhetoric and widespread corruption do exist. So yes, immediate optimism is hard to come by. But ultimate optimism, the idea that the persistent marathon that the human race is running will lead to more and more goodness and more freedom for each of us, it is possible and it can be seen. If we look at the long game of human history, we are still winning. I know this because just this week, there were moves taken to protect marriage equality. I know this because I'm not someone's property. And I know this because I'm not being burned at the stake for heresy. This may sound like a low bar, but I think that does give you a sense of what sort of long game we are talking about. Because once upon a time, these things were not a low bar, and they are now. So it's a case for long game, ultimate optimism. Because at one point in time, these basic low bar things did feel insurmountable. And people did say, well, that is just the way it is and we can't do anything about it. But people did something about it, and things are different now and they are better now. And it only changed because a great multitude of people imagined it and worked for it. To steal the phrase from our social justice committee, it's hope in action. We can see optimism coming because we are planting the seeds of the flowers that will bloom in the future. Today in the 2020s, we need this long view optimism, just like we need religious communities built upon justice, free thought, consent, and the humility that says we are going to keep learning and keep growing and keep changing. How we do that is built on every connection we make here, every act of kindness that decreases someone's suffering, and every move we make toward a world of justice and equity. When Megan Greenwell and Ileana Montauk published their story about the death of their peer, they weren't trying to fix a world full of problems. They were just doing the little bit of good that they could do, even as teenagers. They were just casting their stone at a giant, and somehow, some way, it hit right and brought the giant down. May we find our little stones of power everywhere we go, and may we find the will to use them.
Let's extinguish the chalice. The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in our minds and hearts and the souls of each one of you. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet. Thank you for being with us today. We hope that you are given some thought how you want to be part of the community that works together. The holiday season is here, and we have a lot going on. After service, we will be holding our Green Arts Fair. So come, do a little shopping, and support the local artisans. This coming Saturday, the atheists of Holston Valley Unitarian Universalists are hosting a festive potluck that is here Saturday the 17th at 5 p.m. You can email atheists@hvuu.org for more information or let them know you're coming. And next Sunday, the 18th at 2 p.m., the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans will be having their winter solstice gathering. On the 24th, Christmas Eve at 7 p.m., we will have Christmas stories, carols, and cookies. We will not have church on Christmas Day, the 25th. And then on January 1st, we will have the annual Pancakes and Jam gathering instead of a regular service. George Cross of the Macho Group is going to tell us a little bit about the pancakes and jam.
Good morning. I'll tell you about the pancakes. 3 weeks, January 1st, New Year's Day, we won't have a traditional service. We will have what we have had for several years now called Pancakes and Jam. The men of the church cook pancakes and provide breakfast, and while that is going on, there's also music or poetry or live performance here, which is also in a very casual manner. The whole morning is very casual. So that's what the service will be like on January 1st. I also wanted to say just a little bit about what MACHO is. It's an acronym. It stands for Men Achieving Community Helping Others. And it's been around for 20-plus years here at the church. It's waxed and waned. It's a loosely managed group, and Doug and I are currently leading it. and we're trying to hit a waxing cycle. And we met a couple weeks ago and decided it's time to put some energy into this. Of course, and part of that was we need to get our act together for pancakes and jam. So any men that want to show up maybe an hour early that Sunday or stay an hour late, we're looking for some volunteers. Also, I'm putting together an email list so that we can kind of communicate what we want to do as a group. And so we'll have that's coming out in January. We're going to have a breakfast, and we will discuss how we want to become active again, helping people in the community, helping the church itself, and in the process, having some fun and strengthening relationship amongst the men here. That's what we're about. Thank you.
Before I offer our benediction, I want to offer an apology. We lost someone really important to us this week, and I didn't spend enough time to let us process that. Some of you all who are newer here never got to meet Phyllis. She was at very high health risk, and ever since COVID started, she and her husband have really just had to stay home and not get out for anything. So I've been meeting with them fairly regularly with a mask, sitting outside, and really getting to know these two really amazing people. They've been Unitarian Universalists longer than I've been alive. Phyllis did so much around the church. I know she was part of the caring team and the memorial reception committee, and I'm sure she's done many other things here. And this is a big loss, and I'm sorry I didn't spend more time on it. So I want to invite us to just take a moment of quiet. James, can you play a little piano for us? Maybe the same walking music?
Sure, I can do that.
And let's just take a moment to be with our feelings and to send love to James in this moment. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for being with us today. I hope that you will be able to join us next week for a service called Honor the Dark. After our beautiful Festivals of Light service last week, I've been thinking a lot about these metaphors of light and dark. and how they have both provided such great material for our imaginations. This metaphor of dark can be just as rich as the metaphor of light, and offers us some really beautiful imagery for this season when it is quite dark by the time we get home from work. So I invite you to come play with this metaphor with me, and we might see what we're going to learn about ourselves as we play with that metaphor. The words of our special music went by pretty fast, so I want to reach back for some of their words as our benediction as we go out from this place. Love is the answer, at least for most of the questions in my heart. Like, why are we here, and where do we go, and how come it's so hard? And it's not always easy, and sometimes life can be deceiving, but I'll tell you one thing, it's always better when we're together. I invite you to stay for the Green Arts Festival, do a little bit of holiday shopping. But first, let's do our closing hymn, which for the month of December is hymn number 55, Dark of Winter. This hymn has a simple melody, so we might be learning it, but it should be easy to learn, and I imagine I will be singing it to myself when the sun is setting at 5 p.m. this month. This time that we sing our closing hymn is also when we pass the offering plate. We literally would not be here without your donations, so thank you so much for your support. And please rise in your body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 55, Dark of Winter. Thank you, and go in peace.